This is Cornstalks and Sports Talk, your go-to Iowa-based sports show, hosted by the one and only Eliot Clough.
What's up, Cedar Valley, and hello to the Hawkeye State. This is Cornstalks and Sports Talk, your Iowa-based sports show here on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com. My name is Eliot Clough. I'm a UNI insider for Townsquare Media. You can find me on Twitter. It is at Eliot Clough, ELIOT CLOUGH. So for today's show, we're shaking things up a little bit. We've got James Pollard, son of Iowa State Athletic Director Jamie Pollard, and he's a UNI men's basketball manager. He's joining us to talk a little bit about a TikTok of his that pertains to his job with the Panther basketball team, and it kind of went viral. So that'll be a fun conversation. We also talk a little bit about some of the guys and the summer workouts that he's seen so far. And then Cameron Salerno of the Sacramento Bee, he joins us to tell us about his expectations for Keegan Murray and the Kings this season. Could Murray be Rookie of the Year? Will the Kings make the playoffs for the first time in almost 2 decades? And then we discuss the Sacramento State versus UNI football matchup that is coming up this fall. And so many of you know that right now in sports, it's kind of dead. There's not a whole lot going on other than MLB baseball. Of course, you get golf and tennis and stuff like that. The secondary level sports are happening right now, but football, basketball, not going on. We're not in the thick of the supposed offseason, crazy offseason that happens in the NBA, and, recruiting news, that's going on, but nothing too crazy happening right now. So we're going to go a little bit of a different route to start off this episode of Cornstalks and Sports Talk here on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com. Today, I want to ask, what are the biggest question marks for each of the state schools and their football programs? What is it going into the season? The number one thing that fans may be worried about, are unsure of, or don't know what to expect. So we're doing that with Iowa State, Iowa, and UNI, their football program. So I'm going to start off with Iowa State here on today's show. Number one, the biggest question mark for Iowa State football going into the 2022-2023 season for me is Hunter Dekkers, and I think that's going to be across the board too. This is a quarterback that's coming in after we've seen 4 years straight of Brock Purdy. We've seen very little of him, and what we have seen has been good. I'll give him that. There has been a little bit of garbage time from him, but there's also been moments where he's had to come in and step up and play well against Iowa, and then, of course, against number 13 Oklahoma at Oklahoma rather. And so the expectations for Iowa State are kind of down this year. As we talked about last week with Nick Osen from 24/7 Sports, he covers them. He's the beat writer covering Iowa State football and basketball there. But Dekkers was a 4-star recruit. He had high expectations coming in to Iowa State. Of course, coming in after Brock Purdy made it a little bit difficult for him to step in and play a ton of time. But in that small amount of time, he has been good, like I've said. The thing about the minimal, it's a minimal sample size. That's a big deal for Dekkers. Number one. Number two, he's just been chilling, sitting on the sideline for the last few years. Number three, he's a lefty quarterback, and that's quite different from it's a different ball. If you've ever played football with a left-handed quarterback versus a right-handed quarterback, it's very, very different. Now, Coach Campbell and the team at Big 12 Media Days, they've really gotten behind him, and at any other media event for Iowa State football. They are saying all the right things. They've got the confidence in him, they believe in him, etc. But we just haven't seen a lot of him. That's what this comes down to. We haven't seen a lot of him. Sure, he's a lefty quarterback. I think he's going to play well. I do believe in Hunter Dekkers, and I do believe in Iowa State football this season, but he is their biggest question mark. Up next is Iowa, the Hawkeyes. And I'm kind of going to sound like a broken record here on this first segment, but to me, in Iowa or at Iowa for their football program, number one is quarterback situation. That's their biggest question mark. But then you look down the line on the offense, and it's offensive line. And then you look at, well, where are the playmakers are going to come from? Because, yeah, you've got Arlen Bruce, you've got Keegan Johnson, rather, coming back, and some running backs that we really don't know a lot about. Tyler Goodson, he's going to be with the Packers. You got Caleb Williams, who's presumably going to take over that spot. And then, and only then, can you turn and look at this quarterback situation. And now, they're not only that, but it's been a switch up with Brian Ferentz, what he's doing with the offense. I know Iowa fans just cringe hearing that name, Brian Ferentz. Ooh, and fair enough. I mean, Spencer Petras, he has all the physical tools, right? This is a guy, you look at him in pads and throwing a football, it's like that's a D1 quarterback right there. That Spencer Petras has all those tools, and that's what he looks like to just about everybody. But then you put him in this Iowa offense, not super creative. You put him behind an offensive line that was really young and not good, other than Tyler Linderbaum last year. He gets hurt. You put in Alex Padilla, who's a little bit more mobile and can be exciting at times. And then the question marks really start to fly. And that's why the quarterback position is still number one for me for the Hawkeyes. I mean, Alex Padilla in his time last year, 55 of 112 passes completed. That's 49.1% for those of you who are not able to do math in your head at home. I wouldn't have been able to. A 99.1 quarterback rating. 2 picks, two passing touchdowns, rather, and I'm not impressed. You move over to Spencer Petras, and it doesn't really get that much better. He completed 165 of 288 passes last year, 57%. Okay, that's drastically better than 49%. 1,880 yards passing, but then just 10 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, making it 117 quarterback rating. In 2020, he completed 140 of 245 passes for, again, 57%, 1,569 passing yards, and then 9 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. And look, we know that Iowa is going to have an elite defense almost every single year. You know, you got Jack Campbell, you got Xavier Nwankpa coming back, coming in, Riley Moss coming back. This defense is going to be good. It's going to be among the best in the Big Ten. But can the offense carry their weight? Can the offense do anything other than be mediocre at best? When you have talent like Sam Laporta at the tight end position, you know you're going to get him the ball. He's going to be a guy you can rely on, but who else is going to step up on the offensive side of the ball? That is where I'm at for the Iowa Hawkeyes going into 2022. It's first off, it's the quarterback. Second off, it's the offensive line. And thirdly, it's the weapons around the quarterback. And third, it comes in at third because we've seen a little bit of Arlen Bruce. We've seen a little bit of Keegan Johnson. We know those guys are talented. But can they help the offense? Can they take that step up and be main guys that you're going to go to when you're throwing the football? Because Charlie Jones is gone. Tyrone Tracy's gone. Tyler Goodson, gone. Somebody's got to step up, and they've got to help out in a way that makes things easier for Sam Laporta, Spencer Petras, Alex Padilla to operate. Then we turn to UNI. This is my bread and butter. The Panthers. The biggest question mark for UNI heading into the 2022 football season is the entire offense. The whole thing. And before you get up in arms, let me clarify. This is not necessarily a bad thing for the offense to be the biggest question mark for UNI going into this coming season. I'll list out a few things, and I'll go into it a little bit more. Of course, they lost Trevor Penning, first-round pick. That's your left tackle. That's a cornerstone of your offense. Isaiah Weston, who, had he not had the injury history, certainly would have been drafted, and he might be reaching GOAT status as a wide receiver at UNI. That kid was uber talented, and he put up the numbers with a different quarterback almost every season. Then they got a new offensive coordinator in Bodie Reeder, who is beloved by the offense and by the football players at UNI. I've heard nothing but good things about him. We've interviewed him here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk. Big fan of Bodie Reeder. I'm really excited about what he brings with an up-tempo offense, switching things up, and what I was told on the day of spring football, if you were able to go and watch, was that we didn't even see half of it, of what the offense is going to bring this coming year. So I'm very excited about that. This is the third or fourth offensive coordinator in 3 or 4 years for UNI. It's a lot of turnover at that position, so hoping that he and Ryan Clanton can bring some flavor to the offense and we can see something fun this coming year. Now, I say the offense collectively because we know the defense is going to be stout. Like, it's a championship-level defense every single year for UNI, from top to bottom. All 3 levels, this defense is legit. You look at the defensive line: Caden Hotelling, Devin Rice, Christian Boyd, Kerdarius Bailey, transfer from Iowa State, Dylan Bowles, transfer from Stanford. Then you go to the second level: Bryce Flater, Spencer Cuvalier, who it appears they've been around forever, and they kind of have. They've been great in the middle of the defense for UNI for the last few years. And then you got Ben Belkin, a newer name, but a guy who's stepped in when he's needed and played the role he's been requested of, or required of, rather. Then you got some transfers coming in. Penny Naulu from Hawaii, who went to Washington State. Takolve Williams, who was a wide receiver, switched to linebacker. It was a weird situation. Kansas is a strange football program, but he's a grad transfer coming in. We'll see what he plays. He's listed as a linebacker right now, so we'll see what happens. But then on the back end, you've got Benny Sapp III, Corby Sanders, Stephon Black II, Javon Brecky, Edwin Dearman, Wu Governor, and other transfers. Damian Crumity, Miguel Edwards. I don't know where they're at in terms of eligibility because of transfer. They both transferred multiple times, so we'll see what happens there. But I believe Crumity will be eligible right away because he's a grad transfer. But again, we'll see how that shakes out. And if I'm missing anybody and you think I'm crazy, message us on the KOEL app and tell me I'm stupid, because I looked at the roster, but I may very well be missing a ton of talent here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk this Saturday morning. We're talking about the biggest question marks from all 3 state schools and their football programs. But I just ranted about the defense for UNI. To refocus here, UNI has a ton of transfers coming in offensively too. So it's not just the change at the coaching position, it's all the weapons and the offensive line around Theo Day. Because Theo Day, we're assuming he's going to be the starter, but there will be some competition with him and Matt Morrissey. There's always competition for that quarterback position at UNI. Matt Morrissey, I've heard he is crazy talented. The kid can sling it. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of that competition when I'm able to go to practice in the fall. And go to camp for that matter. But these transfers that are coming in, you got Harrison Bay Bowie, running back from Eastern Illinois. Very much looking forward to him. He looked pretty good at Eastern Illinois last year with a bad team. They were like 1-10. Amari Pesic-Hickson, running back from Kansas. He came in at semester. So did DeVell Washington, wide receiver from West Virginia, and Desmond Hudson, wide receiver from Iowa. And then you got wide receiver from Minnesota, Peter Udoybach. And that's the FBS talent that just came in. Eastern Illinois, Bay Bowie, he's from an FCS school. But a ton of FBS talent among those guys. And then you look at who's already in the wide receiving core for UNI. It's Quan Hampton, who is an FBS transfer, came from Kansas. Sam Schnee, who is probably one of the more underrated players on the entire UNI football roster, if not the country. The kid knows how to play wide receiver. He's always going to catch the ball when it goes his way. I'm a huge Sam Schnee guy. Sergio Moranci, who was a huge pickup for UNI when he committed there. Deion McShane, who has been playing since he was a freshman. Tyson Kershaw, who's shown flashes of being a great wide receiver. And then Logan Wolf, who hasn't gotten a ton of time on the field due to injuries, but when he's healthy, that kid is nasty. You got Brady McCullough coming in, who's a wide receiver as a freshman. This wide receiving group is absolutely loaded. So there's only one ball. There's only one ball in football. I don't know if you knew that. Then you got Jaden Scott and you at tight end who's been hurt, but he's been playing really well when he's been healthy. That's what I heard at spring football. And so where's the ball going to go? And like on top of that, you look at running backs who are still around in Dom Williams and Vance McShane. I'm assuming Harrison Bay-Bowie will be sharing the backfield with them. And then who knows what's going to happen with Amari Pesic-Hickson. Terrence Kamara, when we saw him last year, he was fun in that Western Illinois game. At the very least, when you look at this roster, they have depth. Like, injuries are going to happen. That's just part of football. Injuries are going to happen throughout the year, so you got depth on the offensive side. You got 2 quarterbacks who could play. You got, I don't even know, like 17 wide receivers that can come in and play, 5 running backs that can play at the D1 level. So that's my question mark for UNI. And again, it's not a negative thing. It's not like, oh, what are we going to get? It's, okay, what are we going to see now? New offensive coordinator who's shaking things up with a little bit more of an up-tempo offense. Theo Day, who transferred in from Michigan State. He was a 3-star quarterback. Matt Morrissey, who can sling it. And then you got these loaded position groups in wide receiver and running back. So I'm really excited to see what it's going to be. Big question mark for Iowa State quarterback, Hunter Deckers. Biggest question mark for Iowa. Kind of the same thing as UNI, but from a different vantage point. It's the offense, offensive line, quarterback, weapons. What are we going to see? What's your biggest question mark? Messages on the KOEL app and let us know. If you're listening to this as a podcast, you can always shoot me a reply to the tweet on Twitter. Let us know what you think about the biggest question marks heading into the football season for Iowa's 3 state football programs. For right now, you're listening to Cornstalks and Sports Talk. We'll be right back, having a little bit of a fun conversation with James Pollard, UNI men's basketball manager. He had a TikTok go viral, so we'll talk about that a little bit more, and some UNI basketball. For right now, you're listening to Cornstalks and Sports Talk with me, Eliot Clough, UNI insider for Townsquare Media on AM 950, KOEL, and KOEL.com. And we're back for another segment here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950, KOEL, and KOEL.com with me, UNI insider for Townsquare Media, Eliot Clough, at Eliot Clough on Twitter. So Coach Ben Jacobson recently spoke with the media on the MVC coaches call, and the conversation surrounding UNI basketball has sparked up once again on Twitter and among the fans. Not only that, but one Jamie Pollard, ISU's athletic director, tweeted out a link of his son James' TikTok he posted the other day. And as of Thursday morning, I believe it had 7,000 views on Twitter and a little over 21,000 on TikTok. And now we're mixing it up a little bit here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk. We've got famous Pollard, the most famous Pollard, rather, James, and member of the UNI basketball managers. James, how are you, man?
I'm doing well.
Well.
Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, we want to mix it up a little bit. We've got kind of a unique story from you. So what's it like to be the most famous non-basketball player with the basketball team?
Oh, I don't know if I'd call me that. No, it's fun. I have a lot of fun with our staff and our guys. And, the TikTok, I saw some other managers on TikTok kind of do similar things. And I was like, well, this is kind of fun. I might, just do something to spice it up a little bit. And, here we are now. I guess it kind of got popular. So
have you gotten any responses from people who have seen it, or loads of comments? Has it just been kind of surprising to see how many people have viewed it too?
I'd say I didn't expect this many views. There's been probably about 25 comments on the actual TikTok. Some from our former players, current players, other managers, and then some from just people that I don't know who they are, but they're just like, hey, man, I love being a manager, or, we appreciate what you guys do, or, enjoy it because I miss being a manager. And so it's cool to see those.
So if you want to see the video again, it's on Twitter, Jamie Pollard. That is your dad, right?
Correct.
Okay. I was going to say that'd be kind of weird if it wasn't, but your dad tweeted it out. So it's on Twitter as well as, and what's your handle on TikTok?
J Pollard 3 or something.
Okay. Well, if people want to look it up, they can watch it that way. I've also retweeted it. So if you follow me on Twitter, you can see it there. So like we said, kind of a cool story that you've got here. Your dad is the AD at Iowa State. Your brother ran track and cross country there. But you decided to go to UNI and take a spot with the basketball managers. What made you make that decision?
Basketball growing up was always kind of my favorite sport. Basketball and golf, I'd say those were my 2 favorites. And I I was never a good player. So I knew, kind of going into my freshman year of high school that if, this was something that I wanted to pursue, that being a manager was probably a great option. And so just kind of started looking at schools around the Midwest. I knew I didn't really want to go to Iowa State. I wanted
That's
to get
what I'm
away,
talking about.
kind of get out of the shadows a little bit. So just started reaching out to some schools. I think Mark Sonnen was who I emailed here first. So got in touch with him. He got me in touch with Ike. And then when I came on my visit here, when I was a junior in high school, I got to sit down and talk with Ike and Coach Jake, and kind of get to know them and a little bit about the current managers that they had on staff. And then just kept in touch with Ike throughout my junior and senior years. And when I decided that I was going to be a Panther, it kind of just all fell into place. They were graduating 4 managers, and so there was a lot of spots that opened up. So, and I'm 100% happy with my decision. I love it here.
And so did you manage basketball team in high school too then?
I did. Yep. I was a 4-year manager for our high school varsity team.
Okay. How's the transition been from doing that in high school to now college?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously college is a lot more work. But I think being a manager in high school, it at least gave me a little background of what it's kind of like. I did the clock in high school during our practices. I do the clock for a majority of our practices here. So there's definitely some similarities. And we have a great high school program up at Gilbert. So yeah, that definitely prepared me for coming up here.
And so what has the experience been like? How much more work is it? Are you essentially part of the team by the amount of work you've got to do and helping out with different things?
Yes. I mean, I kind of say you get out of it what you put into it. Right. And I try to, I mean, I love doing it. It doesn't feel like work to me. And so I love spending time at the McLeod. I love spending time up in the office, just doing whatever needs to get done. And there's usually always something, right? Because we're running a pretty big operation. It's a Division I men's basketball program, and stuff just doesn't just get done, right? Somebody's got to do it. And so there's just a lot of little tasks that come up, and I love just being able to be around and help out. And it takes some sacrifices sometimes. It can be a lot of long hours, but I know this is something that I want to get into when I'm older, and kind of looking at the big picture that you got to be willing to put in the work.
You mentioned there that this is something you want to get into when you're older. What does that look like for you going into the future?
I don't know. I mean, I think this business, it's, and I've been very fortunate with my dad and everything, that I maybe understand it a little better than some people. And so I know that you got to be willing to put in the work. You got to be a hard worker, and you got to have some luck. Right. And I don't know what the future holds for me. And frankly, I probably won't have an option. You just kind of have to take what you can get. And so my mindset is I'm just going to work really hard for these 4 years. And when I graduate, we'll see what the next step is.
And now I imagine that not everybody has the experience of doing it all 4 years in high school and then doing it all 4 years in college. Does that give you a bit of an edge there too?
I think so. Just you're around it a lot more. And so you have more time for your responsibilities to increase, and you're just around the coaches more. They learn to trust you more and everything. And so I think that does play a part in success later down the road.
We're talking with James Pollard, UNI basketball manager, who recently went semi-viral on TikTok, mixing things up here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950, KOEL and KOEL.com. So when we're talking about the things that you do every day, in that TikTok, that's the thing that's getting a lot of people's attention. That's what has that been what your summer looks like all summer? And how does that compare to during basketball season?
Yeah. So our main responsibilities in the summer is mostly just practice. So obviously getting there an hour to an hour and a half early and getting things set up, get the ball racks out, mop the court, get the, shot clock set up, get our gun box out there, get our towels out there, set up film. And then, obviously rebounding for guys before practice, after practice, taking everything down. And then from there, in the summer, at least, there's not a whole lot. I mean, there's little things that come up, but for me, I love spending time there. And one area that I've been fortunate to get a lot of experience in is the film room and video. And so, in that TikTok, you kind of see me working on some video stuff and cutting up practice and doing some projects. And that's just from our coaches, assigning me stuff and giving me stuff to do because they know I enjoy it and they know I'm willing to put the time in and do it. As far as like season goes, in season, we're just a lot more busy with traveling. You got to pack for road trips. Practices are longer. More guys are probably in getting up shots. And so the workload is definitely much more in the season. But there's still plenty to do in the summer where you can spend a lot of time in there.
So do you go to all the away games?
No, I do not. Last year I was fortunate to travel quite a lot. I went to 6 of our 9 conference road games, and then got to go to St. Louis for the tournament, returned to St. Louis for the NIT, and then got to go out to Provo to play BYU. So
that's cool. What's the coolest place you've been traveling with the team?
I'd probably say BYU was pretty cool, just with the mountains and everything, and their arena was really big. So that was a cool environment to play in. Wish we could have gotten the win, but
Yeah.
That's how it goes sometimes. Obviously, St. Louis was really cool. Just that whole conference tournament experience. I love that. So I'd say those are probably the 2 coolest trips.
The MVC tournament is like no other. That's for sure. It's really fun down there. Now, one other thing that I thought of when we're talking about doing this interview was the experience that you have, not just like setting up and doing what the coaches ask you to do, but hanging out with the guys. Like if I remember right on that TikTok, it was a clip of you getting breakfast with Drew Daniel, walk on from Dowling Catholic. Do you feel like you're part of the squad, part of the group, and how much interaction do you get with the players for that matter?
Oh, definitely a lot. And, they treat us really well. They treat us, like family, just like they treat each other. And, when you're in there putting in time with guys, rebounding for them, it's little stuff like, hey, we're done rebounding, want to go get brunch or want to go get dinner or something. And so, yeah, they can kind of turn to us and kind of be, we can kind of play both roles. We're kind of in between the coaches and the players, right? Like we're kind of like that mutual group that can kind of bind the two together.
That's cool. That's cool. Now, when you're working out with these guys over the summer, you get an inside look that a lot of people don't. How about one player that I know a lot of people are really excited to see, Trey Campbell? What have you seen from him this summer? Are you excited to see more of him too?
Oh, I'm really excited. No, Trey's great. He puts a lot of time in. I think it was, just the other day I went in there and not too long after I got in, I heard the door shut. And of course he was in there getting shots up. And I think being from Cedar Falls, he's been around the program. He knows, what type of standard we like to have here. And he's tasted that success at Cedar Falls and just being around and coming to games. And so, no, I'm really excited to see him get out there and perform.
How about some of the rest of the guys? Anybody that, the known commodities like Coach Jake listed on the MVC coaches call last week are Bowen, Nate, and Austin. Other than that, it's guys that have seen time like Titan Anderson. And then you look at guys like Cole Henry. Anybody else that's standing out to you in terms of these summer workouts that you've really enjoyed watching, or that you say, wow, that guy is putting in work maybe more than he's done before?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really everybody, everybody's they're putting in a lot of time. Obviously those guys that you mentioned, Titan, Michael Duax, Landon Wolf, those guys, I'm just excited to see the direction that this team goes. Obviously we lost a lot of pieces, but this team still has a really good chance to be special, especially on the defensive end. I think we've got a lot of length and size that we can create some havoc there. So yeah, I'm just really excited to see them grow and keep improving every day. And obviously in the fall, getting Ega here from Turkey. So I'm excited to see what he can do for sure.
Have you been watching any of those games that he's been playing in?
A little bit, yep.
He's pretty exciting, man, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, his vision, he some of those passes that he throws they're pretty cool.
Going to be a young backcourt with him and Trey. And of course you got guys like Landon Wolf in there and Bowen mixing it up. So it's going to be a fun season. And James Pollard, he's going to be there through it all. I believe it's JPollard_3 on TikTok. I was trying to remember what it is. I looked it up. You pretty sure?
Yeah, you're probably right.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have folks, if you want to watch that video, you can look it up there. It's also on my Twitter page as well. I've retweeted it from Jamie's dad. James' dad. And so we're really excited for the season coming up. James, if you have another TikTok go viral, we'll hit you up. We'll get you back on the show, man.
Awesome. Hey, I appreciate you having me on. Appreciate everything you do for the Panthers, and really looking forward to the season, and hope our fans are just as excited as I am to get it going.
Now, folks, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back for that third and final segment here on this Saturday morning. Cameron Salerno from the Sacramento Bee will be joining us to talk a little bit about Keegan Murray's debut for the Kings over those 4 games in the NBA Summer League, winning the NBA Summer League MVP, his expectations for Murray this coming season, then a little bit about the Sacramento State and UNI football game coming up this fall. Don't go anywhere. We got more Cornstalks and Sports Talk coming up in just a few. Welcome back once again for another segment of Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com with me, UNI insider for Townsquare Media, Eliot Clough, at Eliot Clough on Twitter. Iowa's Keegan Murray named Summer League MVP after averaging 23.3 points, 7.3 rebounds per game while shooting 50% overall and 40% on three-pointers in those 4 games. So the Kings, they're pretty happy with that. Now joining us from the Sacramento Bee is Cameron Salerno. Cameron, did you expect this from Keegan Murray when he was drafted 4th overall by the Kings about a month ago?
I know a lot of people did, and a lot of people from the great state of Iowa said that he would have that sort of production coming out. And I know a lot of people, when they talk to beat people, they always want to say positive things, and why wouldn't they? Because this is someone they've covered for a long time. But I really started to buy in as soon as I heard Monty McNair, who's a Sacramento Kings GM, talk about Keegan Murray. And he said that he was probably always going to be the guy at number 4. And I know reports came out a few weeks ago how the Sacramento Kings really weren't looking to trade the pick, even though there was a lot of smoke about it. So I think they had Keegan Murray in mind all along. And you just saw the production he had right away. I mean, that first summer league game, he shot 10 for 14 from the field, and he was very efficient, had a very efficient 26 points. And so that was really impressive. And I also thought, too, just the way he played, how he's just a smart player and how he's a really good person. I think all those things are going to really fit in with the Kings well. And so I think, for me personally, I didn't expect it right away. I knew he was the most pro-ready prospect coming out of the draft. But to have that sort of production and to be the best player on the floor in pretty much every single game he played in throughout the summer league was beyond impressive.
Right. And, I think there was this sentiment of him not being a high ceiling player, being a high floor guy. I know we talked about that a couple of weeks ago here on Cornstalks Sports Talk with Derek Murray from basketballnews.com. And that was kind of the strategy when going after him, though, with the Kings. They didn't go Jaden Ivey, who was considered, the 4th best prospect widely going into the NBA draft. As someone who covers the Kings, what did you think when he was drafted?
I thought they were going to go Jaden Ivey personally. And I thought, a lot of people said that it was a 4-player draft with Jaden Ivey and obviously the big 3 that went with the top 3 picks. I was a little surprised they picked Murray just because I thought they would either trade out of the pick and maybe draft Murray later, or they would take Jaden Ivey and maybe trade him away, or just take Jaden Ivey in general. So I was a little surprised when they made the pick. I know a lot of Kings fans, I know were upset because I think they have PTSD from drafting a lot of busts over the years. So I think as time went on, I mean, I kind of accepted it. I said, okay, like let's see how this kid can play. Like, because I mean, you saw how he played at Iowa. He was very productive, and just the way his career trajectory has really been impressive. I know a lot of people talk about the low ceiling, the low floor, or the high ceiling aspect of it. But when you look at how he's progressed, he's progressing how you would want someone to progress in the NBA. As far as, I mean, most of these guys who are being drafted are 19 or 20 years old, and Keegan went to DME out of high school, prep school, and he really developed. And then he got to Iowa, and his freshman year he didn't play a ton, but then his sophomore year made the huge leap and became one of the best players in the country. And so he's really had a great what's the word? He's really progressed as a player over these last few years, and that's what you want to see. And so I think the high floor talk is just how he is right now. But if he's on that career trajectory path like he's been on the last few years coming out of high school, then Kings fans should be really excited, and Iowa fans should be really excited to watch him too.
And when you look at the previous draft picks, like you mentioned, and you look and see Marvin Bagley and names like that, Nick Stauskas, Ben McLemore, like I kind of get it. It is a little bit of PTSD, and they've gone for fit as opposed to upside, and that can really bite you in the butt when you're drafting the NBA. But this time around, I do think it's a little different. Sure, I might be a little biased because I am from Iowa, but do you think he fits well with Davion Mitchell, with De'Aaron Fox, with Domantas Sabonis, who they just traded away Tyrese Halliburton for? What do you think about that and Murray's fit with the Kings roster as it's currently constructed?
I think Murray's a perfect fit for this Kings roster, and I think that was what the talk was heading into the draft, that if they drafted Murray at number 4, he'd be a perfect fit for them right away. And I know I saw it was on ESPN the other day. They were projecting the Kings lineup and having Rashawn Holmes at the 5 and Sabonis at the 4, but Sabonis wants to play the 5, and I think Murray's going to play the 4. And I project he's going to play probably about 85 to 90% of his minutes at the 4. He definitely is a guy who can step in and play the 3, but Kings have Harrison Barnes, who if they trade him away, then maybe it leaves a void at the 3. But I think he fits in really well with the Kings roster. He's a guy who's going to come in right away. He's going to average about 15 to 17 points a night, I really believe, just because of what he can do right away. He's a guy who has the upside to lead all rookies in scoring from year one. And just because of the way he plays, he's not going to really need the ball a lot. I mean, the Kings have scoring with De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis, like you said, but he's a guy who could definitely be a third option if he pans out. And I know a lot of people talked about his ceiling and how just the person he compares his game to is Chris Middleton. And it's not just, I know a lot of people talked about pre-draft and a lot of people like to make comps, but this was a guy that, even though a lot of NBA scouts and people who cover the NBA projected him and comped him to, Keegan came out and said, I model my game after Chris Middleton. And I thought that was pretty surprising, just because you rarely see someone who says they model their game after someone that they're compared to. And so I put a side by side together on Twitter about them shooting, and it was just a little step back 3, and it was really impressive. They really do have some similarities in their game, and also too just their upbringing. I know Chris Middleton was a guy that wasn't really highly touted out coming out of college, and he played in the D League, which is now the G League, and now he's become an NBA champion. He was a All-Star, and he was the number 2 option on a championship level team. So if Keegan Murray can do that, then Kings fans should be really excited.
Yeah, 15 to 17 points is a bit surprising for me anyway. But apparently Marcus Spears agrees with you. He picked Murray to be the rookie of the year, Kings to make the playoffs for the first time in almost 2 decades, since 2005, 2006. What makes you so confident that he's going to score 15 to 17 points a game? I mean, we're coming off of the summer league, right? It's not a full-blown pro. So what makes you come to that conclusion?
Well, the stuff he was doing in the summer league is stuff that's going to translate to the NBA. Keegan was shooting very efficiently. He doesn't need the ball a lot. He's not going to force a lot of shots. He's not going to score 20 points on 30 shots a night. He's very efficient. He's a guy that's probably going to take maybe 10 shots and he's going to score probably 20 points just because he can get to the line, he can drive. And I know the biggest knock coming out of him coming out of college was a shot creation. And he showed flashes that in the summer league that it's improved. And the thing is Keegan's not going to have to do all that in the NBA. He has guys who can score. He has guys who can facilitate to him like Sabonis. And that's why I think Sabonis and Murray is a perfect fit, the 4 and 5 of the Kings, because stuff they do really complements each other. And Keegan's a guy who can be a stretch 4 for the Kings. And they haven't really had a guy like that a big man who can shoot in a very long time. And I know Sabonis is a decent 3-point shooter. And if he really steps up his game, that'd be huge. But Murray's more of a true stretch 4. I think he shot 37 or 38% at Iowa last year. And so, I mean, if he can stay around that percentage, I know a lot of the shots are going to fall. And Sabonis is a guy that can get guys involved. I mean, I would not be surprised if Sabonis had a career high in assists this year just because of the shooting the Kings added around Keegan and De'Aaron. And so I think that's why I think Murray's going to score about 15 to 17 a night. And when you look at one of Will, who covers the Kings for us in Sacramento, he puts out a lot of advanced stats and data. It was this data set about the averages of the last 10 rookies of the years. And I think it was about 17.4 points they're averaging. And so if Keegan gets up to that level, he definitely will be a contender for rookie of the year. And I think if Keegan's scoring that many points a night, the Kings will have a really good chance to break the playoff drought and make the playoffs.
We've got Cameron Salerno from the Sacramento Bee on Cornstalks and Sports Talk, talking a little bit about Keegan Murray on the Kings, his play in the NBA Summer League, ultimately being Summer League MVP, and looking forward for the Kings. So playoffs really within reach. You believe that is playoffs or play in?
I think play-ins right now. I mean, I don't want to jump the gun a little bit, but I mean, I've said for the last few years they're going to make the play-in, including last year, and obviously I know how they fell short of that. But I mean, I think the play-in should be the minimum for this team this year. I mean, they have the playmaking, they have the shooting now, they have the fit, they have a good coach in Mike Brown who's going to really have them buy in to play defense from day one, which is something the Kings haven't done since I've been alive. And so, I mean, if all those, it's kind of like creating the perfect recipe. I mean, they have now the fit, they have the shooting, they have the playmaking, they need a little bit more defense, but they have that philosophy from Mike Brown. And so if they can put all that stuff together, the recipe should equal the play-in. I mean, playoffs, we'll see, but play-in should at least be the minimum. And I also wonder too, I mean, how are fans going to judge if the playoff drought gets broken, if they only make the play-in as compared to the playoffs? I know officially that's the play-in is the playoffs, but kind of is, kind of isn't. So I think it'll be up for Kings fans to decide, but it'd be a good problem to have if they make the play-in. I know you're going to see a lot of grown people crying when the Kings make the play-in, or at least competitive. And the city deserves it. I know I've lived here my whole life, and I know a lot of Kings fans, and I've obviously talked to a lot of Kings fans. I know a lot of Kings fans, and they just want to see winning basketball. And if they can see winning basketball, I mean, the city is going to embrace it, because Sacramento has a very loyal fan base and a fan base that buys in. And I mean, you see it. Like, I mean, when the Kings were terrible, really bad a few years ago, when they're winning like 28, 29 games, they still have packed arenas, which is honestly pretty incredible knowing how bad the product was. And so I just can't imagine what that place will be like when the Kings are winning 40 plus games. So we'll see.
Before we let you go, Cam, one thing I do want to talk about is, as a UNI insider, is Sacramento State and UNI, of course, played last year for the first time ever in school history. But the Hornets, they're going to be in Cedar Falls this season playing in the Dome. Last year, Sacramento and UNI went there, beat the Hornets 34-16. Theo Day made his first appearance as this. Well, he came in at halftime, continued being the starter through the rest of the season, then transferred from Michigan State. And the next week, the Hornets lost to Cal and then went on an absolute tear. Won 8 games in a row, if I remember correctly.
They went 8-0 in Big Sky play. I really think that Northern Iowa game was a turning point for the Hornets. I know it was a pretty disappointing loss, but I think they really bounced back from it. And I'm really excited for that game this year because I know Northern Iowa is going to be really good. They're always one of the best FCS teams. And Sac State's a program that's really been on the rise for the last few years, ever since Troy Taylor got hired. Troy Taylor was the offensive coordinator at Eastern Washington and then was at University of Utah. And ever since he took over the Hornets program, they've really ascended to one of the premier programs in the Big Sky. I mean, recruiting's really good. Sac State is a program that really struggled to attract top local talent here in Sacramento. And ever since Troy Taylor and his staff was hired, they've made that a priority. And you can see it. They've just had their best recruiting class from this area. I mean, they got the top defensive back from this area. They got the top running back / slot receiver. They got another solid running back. They got another really good defensive back. So it's looking really good for the Hornets. I'm excited for that game. I mean, I'm curious how it's going to go. I know Sac State probably wants some revenge just from losing that at home, and that was a home opener. And what's funny about that too is that was Sac State's first game in 2 years at home because they didn't play in the spring of 2021 because of COVID. And so I think they have a bad taste in their mouth, and it's going to be really cool for them to travel to the Dome. So I think it's going to be an interesting matchup for sure.
Ultimately fell to another MVFC team in the playoffs, South Dakota State. So would you say there's a difference in how these two teams in two conferences play football? I know the Big Sky is known for their offense. MVFC continually has some of the best defenses in the country. And so is that a matchup that favors the MVFC teams? Because based on last year's record against the MVFC, it's what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, with that conference, I mean, it's so interesting because I went on the field for warm-ups during the FCS playoffs when they played South Dakota State, and their players were men and huge.
Yep.
I mean, I forget his name. I hate to forget the big tight end, number 85 on South Dakota State, who I think is an NFL prospect. You look at him, and there wasn't a guy on Sac State's roster that was that size, and they were big and they were physical. I mean, they were country strong. I mean, California has some athletes, don't get me wrong, but we don't have country strong athletes like that. I mean, guys who are just very strong. And so I think that was like the biggest difference. And in the first half of that game, I mean, South Dakota State really imposed their will. And I think as time went on, Sac State kind of adjusted, but Sac State's offense is going to be really good this year. They returned 9 of 11 starters. They have a lot of guys who are coming back who got some meaningful reps last year. And so I think it's going to be a really interesting matchup just because of the offense versus defense. I know people love to see a top offense versus top defense go at each other. The Hornets defense should be really solid too. And I think that's going to be the matchup that ultimately wins or loses them the game.
I'm assuming you're talking about Zach Hines, 6'7", 250. Yeah. He
was a man. And it just, I mean, Sac State has a really good tight end, Marshall Martin, who's kind of like a Darren Waller type where he's like really athletic but I mean, he's not big like him. And they're definitely two different play styles. So yeah, South Dakota State was really good. I think it was really eye-opening for them too. Like, I mean, Sac State has had a chance to really play some, I mean, Big Sky is one of the best conferences in the FCS, but I mean, the Missouri Valley is different just because it's a whole new level. I mean, as far as like the skill level or not the skill level, but rather just the pedigree of the conference. I mean, obviously North Dakota State is Alabama of the FCS, and then South Dakota State is really solid. And then you have Northern Iowa. And so it's a really strong conference. I really don't think those two are the best conferences in FCS. I mean, you can debate it, which one's one, which one's two, but I mean, I think you could talk to almost anyone who covers FCS or watches in, you would say probably those are the two best conferences.
They do call the MVFC the SEC of the FCS. So how many more acronyms we can get in there, I don't know. But I'm excited to see it in the Dome too. We'll wrap it up here, Cam, but we appreciate you hopping on. He is Cameron Salerno from the Sacramento Bee at Cameron Salerno1 on Twitter. Cameron, we appreciate you hopping on, man. And we'll hopefully see you in the Dome. Is there any chance you'll be there?
I hope so. I mean, we'll see. I mean, I know we don't really travel a lot just because of just COVID has really changed sports, but I'll definitely be following along for sure and hope to talk soon. Hopefully we'll talk during that game.
Cool. Appreciate you, man. And folks, that'll do it for this week's episode of Cornstalks and Sports Talk. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you missed any part of today's show, you can always listen to the whole thing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you tune in to your podcast. And of course, we've got both of those segments with James and with Cameron on YouTube. You can just search me there. It's Eliot Clough. Once again, folks, my name is Eliot Clough. I'm a UNI insider for Townsquare Media. You can find me on Twitter at Eliot Clough. And this was another episode of Cornstalks and Sports Talk.
What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage? Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.